Hello there and welcome back in. So we are going to paint a landscape today. I've taped it off as you can see. Well, maybe you can't see. I'm trying to mimic a Polaroid photo when all is said and done. I'm showing you what I do here so as not to get like my fingers all over the painting or the paper. I just kind of take this to smooth my sides down in hopes that I can have a crisp border at the end. So we will see if that helps. Sometimes it does. And to start off here, I'm just going to take my wet brush and I am going to wet the upper portion here, maybe quarter to a third of the page. And then I'm going to grab some light blue and I'm going to just paint in some blue. I'm going to let that dry just a little bit. I'm also going to change brushes because this one is way too big. I'm going to switch to my size 6 round. And letting that blue dry somewhat, but not completely, I'm going to come in with more water on my brush, and I'm just going to wet the next portion, letting it kind of go into the blue a little bit, which will keep everything kind of fluid here. And I'm going to make a little bit of a wider swath here, just a little bit wider than the blue. And I'm going to add some orange. I mixed together some orange and yellow. I am using Paul Rubens Professional Watercolors today. And I will link those. I always try to link them for you, but sometimes I forget. But I'll link them if you're interested. But otherwise, just use whatever colors you have. So you can see that's just kind of gently blending with the blue. You don't really want orange and blue to mix together like dark colors because it's just going to make kind of a muddy color. But this should work just fine. And it's okay if this is like a little slanted because I'm actually going to have a tree line right there. And I'm going to let these dry completely before I add any grass. Because again, I'm not worried about there being a soft blend. I like how that's softly blending. And we're just going to let that do its thing while it dries. And I'll be right back. Oh, I almost forgot. Before that dries completely, I'm just going to take a paper towel and just kind of bunch it up a little bit and put a little, just lift some of the color out. See how that lifts the color? I'm going to try to get it round like the sun, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just tapping that in there, dabbing, tapping, whatever. Here, now you can see a little bit of an indication of a sun, and now we'll let this completely dry. All right, and now I'm coming in with a darker green, and I actually added some black to my green because I don't want there to be any transparency so that you could see the orange underneath the green, if that makes sense. It's okay if the orange peeks through it. That's different than like the transparency. But we're just going to dab in some trees up here. And you can just, I'll probably speed you through this honestly because it's just dabbing and you can make some taller than the others, of course. And if it ends up being transparent, all we need to do is let it completely dry and then we'll come in with another layer. So let's just bring in our trees. And I do see a little bit of transparency, so I'm going to let those dry before I come in with a second layer to just make sure that I want them to be more of a silhouette. And I'm going to come in with some water on my brush because we're going to do the foreground now. There is a little bit of green in here, which is fine because I'm going to do green in the foreground anyway. Hopefully that helps you see what I'm doing better. And you can also see when I've taped things, just to hopefully help me get a crisper border, I come in from the outside and paint like that. And I'm going to let my water, my wet brush, come up and tap into those trees. And that will let them bleed down a little bit into our grassy area. Just blending a little bit nicer. And if you're happy with the way the trees look, just leave them. It's fine, but I am going to darken them up in spots. I like how the sunset is peeking through, and so I'm going to try to leave some of that in there. But do you see how allowing our wet brush to just come up and touch that, it just brings down some of that green nicely. And then in the foreground, you can do grass, you could do wildflowers. I'm just going to add a little bit of varying greens in here, and I just want to keep it a nice soft look. I'm doing kind of a mossy green, you could call it an army green. You can see everything is still a little damp, so it's just blending nicely. I don't really want any harsh lines, and so we're just adding some variance in colors, and maybe we'll just make this come all the way down here. And while that's still wet, I'm going to come in with the same colors of the trees, and I'm going to just bring it down even more to just let everything blend together. You see how it's blending with the mossy green? Because I don't really want any of that really light white showing. I think I'll even put some of that green in the mossy green to blend even further. Okay, and now that is a very dark green on my brush. I've got green and black mixed together because I really want this tree line to look more like a silhouette. So let's see what we got here. And I'm just going to speed you through that because I'm really just tapping right over the same parts we've already done. And I have let that completely dry now, so let's lift our tape and see if we got the Polaroid picture look I was going for. I think I did. What do you think? Maybe that's a little wide down there, but that's okay. You can always chop it off if you want. In fact, yeah, let's just cut it a little bit because it's bothering me enough that I want to cut it. Not the end of the world, but if we can, why don't we? But here. There we go. I like that much better. What do you think? Okay, I hope this inspires you to go paint something beautiful today. And if you do paint your own sunset, I would love it if you'd tag me because I want to see it. Or just leave me a comment and let me know if you give it a try. And until next time, take care.